really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker. What you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way. Close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, we are busy today. We recognize legends of the past, and we look to the present and obviously view to the future. If you guys missed Bobby Marks yesterday on the show, he had mentioned an interesting nugget regarding the entire Miles Turner saga. He had said that from what he was told, and this I think is running in a promo right now, that once Miles and his rep team got that offer from Milwaukee, there was no chance, or they gave the Pacers no chance to make a counteroffer. And listen, I don't know if anybody even cares, because I think for the most part, a lot of you believe, okay, that's the best thing that could have happened for the future of the Pacers, and you don't really care. But again, some out there may say, well, you know, that's what this guy thought about it around here. Well, a couple of things. And yes, I don't flip-flop. Somebody had mentioned that earlier today. I love the way, even though sometimes you can be a horse's ass, which is true, especially to those that are horse's asses to me, and that can be the case, I'm no flip-flopper. And I don't know if that's because I guess it's because I truly believe in what I believe in. But at the same time, I am, and if anybody out there knows me, incredibly stubborn. I am very stubborn. And, you know, oftentimes it can be beneficial to be stubborn. There are times when it isn't. And both personally, career-wise, oftentimes it can work against me. But in this case, I am always going to be a supporter of Miles. I understand around here that is never, ever going to be the case again. And I had mentioned this yesterday. You know, once he took that offer, it may have been different, and probably would have been different had it been New Orleans or Dallas or someplace that wasn't certainly in focus like the rival in Milwaukee. And that changed the dynamic for everything. And so when Bobby Marks had mentioned yesterday that from what he was told, the Pacers had zero opportunity at a counter offer, Miles and his reps just moved on. I thought, well, this is just going to be, you know, another brick in the wall, so to speak, Pink Floyd, that there is going to be no return. There's never going to be, or at least for a long time, anything embraceable right here, certainly from the fan base and probably from the Pacers. Because I've also mentioned this is not a high-quality product of mine. I am a grudge holder, and I'm assuming there will be some grudges holded here. And you kind of wonder in the angle of Miles if, you know, maybe there's a bit of a grudge there. You've been dangled out in trade situations forever. 3 years ago, the whole DeAndre Ayton thing happened. So maybe you're just thinking, all right, well, enough is enough. This is the opportunity, and this is it. But if you missed any of Bobby Marks yesterday, and what he has said is absolutely true from what I gather, you can check it out at 1075thefan.com. It is good stuff. At this point, it appears, and you guys are right. I'm not going to dismiss the fact to where I agree. Going into a season with Isaiah Jackson, with Tony Bradley, with James Wiseman, or a combination of any of those three, or maybe even Thomas Bryant, does not seem ideal. But let's face it, this season didn't seem ideal after the past week and a half. almost 2 weeks now. From Halliburton now to Miles bailing. I will say this. I still have a deeply rooted belief in the guys that are here right now. I'm assuming the Pacers do as well. This is more of what we're going to find out. This is what is so awkward about trying to deal with free agency and all this stuff that is fluid with NBA off-court news this time of year is because, like, people are saying, why don't the Pacers say anything? Because they're not gonna. Until, the 6th of July? They're not going to say anything. There's nothing going to be said. And, hell, you probably won't find out exactly from the Miles angle what took place, his thought process, until the start of the season. It's going to be a while. I mean, you're thinking you're not going to be able to truly evaluate the situation until further down the road. But you're not even going to be able to, other than, just bits and pieces here or there, as I shared with you with Bobby Marks yesterday, make any sort of evaluation until you hear from those that have been involved. And then again, you're going to hear a couple of different sides to the story. And when we get that information, we will share that information with you. I promise you that. Shaka Smart, the head coach of Marquette, is going to join us coming up at the bottom of the hour. Cam Jones was a second-round selection by the Pacers, and Shaka joins us for the first time on this show, bottom of the hour. Top of the hour, Ritchie McKay. He'll join us, the head coach of Liberty. It was funny. He was the former coach of New Mexico, coached up Danny Granger, but also when you look back at all the coaches with Hoosier State ties that have been involved with New Mexico, there's a handful. Ritchie McKay is an incredibly nice guy, the head coach at Liberty. He's going to join us and talk about the other second-round selection by the Pacers, Talon Peter, out of Liberty, coming up here at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Tucker Barnhart. Tuck stepped away from Major League Baseball. Got his 10 years in and is done. He's in retirement, so now he can join us at all the tavern tour stops that he wants. Tucker Barnhart joins us coming up at 4:30 today. And Mike Chappell, I'd mentioned the passing of Dick Mittman a little bit earlier as well. We'll talk to Mike about that, and I'm sure some Colts nuggets coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. But joining us now, the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. There were two significant passings in the world of sports around here, just legendary passings. I mentioned that of Dick Mittman, but also we got the bad news today at the age of 85, Don Hine, local sports legend, and much like I look at myself, big-time hooper. Played at Northern Iowa, I believe for Norm Stewart while at Northern Iowa, and just carved out an incredible, legendary career here at Channel 13 WTHR, most notably. In fact, he was still doing some things when I started my 3-year weekend sunrise run back between 2006 and 2009 at Channel 13. And I wanted to bring on somebody that would have a great deal of knowledge because he has been there forever. He is the multi-talented, the Swiss Army knife of local news and sports. The talented Rich Nye of Channel 13 is kind enough to join us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hello, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing great, JMV. Thanks for that introduction. And it is a sad day. I got the news from an email this morning from Don's daughter, and then I talked to her later in the morning, and she confirmed the news that Don did pass away about 3:30 this morning. A man who worked at WTHR for more than 3 decades, and I could be wrong here, John, but I know you replaced me as the morning sports anchor.
Yes.
On the weekends at WTHR. And then
quite the downgrade, by the way, I might add. Yes.
Well, I was going to say is I think Don then actually, after you left, came back and did some fill-in work on the weekend mornings for us after you left, if I remember the timing right, somewhere in there.
Yes, it was. It was just cool to be around him. And, Rich, I was reminded, I was at Workingman's Friend a couple of years ago with myself and some of my friends and listeners of the show, and there was kind of a Channel 13 old school reunion going on at Workingman's Friend at the time, and Don, the Heiner, was a part of that. I think Ann Ryder was over there as well. It was kind of an amazing situation that transpired that just it was a coincidence on that particular day I ran into him. But there are few that are more legendary, Rich, in this market than the Heiner.
Well, that's unquestioned. Don came here in the 1970s. He was hired out of Peoria, working for a radio TV combo over there, and he was brought here to be involved with the ABA Pacers coverage and broadcast. And that's why he first came to Indianapolis. And he was here, like I said, for over 3 decades on the air, the sports director of WTHR for many years. And what I always respected most about Don is that he has kind of had an approach that I guess I would say I take over the years, and that Don was never what I call a highlight jockey.
Right.
He was not a screamer and a yeller. He was not a comedian on the air. He didn't have shtick. But Don, who was a speech and English major and graduate, he was very serious about his writing, and he would write out his sportscast timed out to a T. He wanted to deliver it with perfection, and he was quite the wordsmith and the grammarian around here in this newsroom, and would correct others within the newscast to make sure that we got things right when we were saying it on the air.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. I'm not even in the general vicinity of what you just described. I use 3-letter words and cuss words, and I say, all this stuff, and that's how I view Don that way. I view Mark Patrick that way as well. These guys were just at a much higher level, and I could not have been more happy to be a part of that. It was the tail end of it, but it was certainly a part of it. In growing up watching them and then being a part of what they do on a daily basis with both, and certainly in this case, Don Hein, was absolutely an incredible experience.
Well, it was the golden age of local television news and therefore sports. At a time when that sportscaster got his 4 minutes at 6 o'clock and his 4 minutes at 11 o'clock. And that was where you went to get your scores. That was where you went to get all your sports information. Even in the days before ESPN, it was even more important that your sports information was coming from your local TV sports anchor. And Don thrived during that age for sure.
Yeah, Rich Nye joins us of Channel 13. I mentioned the Swiss Army knife. There is nobody more talented in this market than Rich Nye, who joins us right now, because he just does stuff that not everybody can do, and he does it all in one piece, and it's always been amazing to me. And I know Jake Query and others like me certainly understand your level of talent, and that's kind of the level, I think, of Don Hein compared to both radio and TV. And then, much like you, he was a relationship builder, and there were few around in those moments that had a better working relationship with Bob Knight than Don Hein did back in the day.
Absolutely correct. I mean, it became a point in the 90s where Bob Knight would say something or do something, and we needed to talk to Bob. And the only guy who was going to get Bob Knight was Don Hein. And Don could call up Bob and get down there within a day or an afternoon, and Bob would talk to Don when maybe he wouldn't talk to anybody else. And that was a relationship that, had its ups and downs. There were times when Don was banned from Assembly Hall, also in his career. But Don, or Bob, I should say, built up a respect for Don over time. And Don was not someone who would take crap, quite frankly, from anybody. And they had their outs, but then Bob Knight grew to respect Don Hein. And so in the later stages of both their careers, in his tenure at IU, Don was the guy who could get Bob Knight to come on and talk about the Neil Reed situation and all those other things that went on there in the later stages.
It's Rich Nye of Channel 13 WTHR. We're reflecting on the passing of the legendary Don Hine that we learned that news earlier today. Don passed away at the age of 85. Do you recollect the last time that you had the opportunity to have a little dialogue with Don?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we believe it's the last time that Don was on our air, and that is when Bob Knight passed away, which if I'm wrong, I believe it was in November of 2023, late 2023.
Yeah.
I went and interviewed Don. Don was living at a retirement community up in Fishers, and at that time was still very sharp. And we shared some stories, and he told Bob Knight stories and talked about his relationship with Bob and, sort of the unique character that Bob Knight was in such an awesome, incredible coach, and yet all the things that went on in and around Bob Knight, his relationship with the media and how he coached by intimidation and often liked to intimidate and control the media as best he could. And so that was the last time I talked to Don, was in November of 23. I don't think his family would mind me sharing this because it's going to be a part of his obituary, but they are asking for donations to ALS, and that Don was suffering from some dementia in the last year, and they're asking for donations to that as part of his arrangements and funeral. And so I know that Don, who was always so sharp as a tack, this last few months especially had been difficult for him and his family.
So Rich Nye is with us, Channel 13 WTHR, on the passing of the legendary Don Hine. I'm assuming that you guys and you probably will spearhead, the look back and the celebration of an incredible career at Channel 13. Do you guys have in mind what's in store for us?
Well, I'm working on a story right now that will end our newscast, our early evening news block tonight at about 6:20. And we'll just, begin to scratch the surface on what Don did here. I did talk to Bob Gregory today. Bob and Don, of course, Bob, for those who may not know, a legendary weatherman here in Indianapolis. Bob and Don went back together at that station in Peoria. They didn't come here at the same time, but they both eventually wound up at WTHR. And for, 20 years or more, it was Bob Gregory weather, followed by Don Hine sports. And Bob told the story about how Hine was always on his case, and Bob knew that he was serious, that Bob was not to go long with weather because that was going to cut into Don Hine's 4-minute sportscast.
Wow.
And that Don always made that very clear that, hey, don't you be running weather long because I've got my 4-minute sportscast and it's timed out to a T. And I don't want the producer telling me I have to cut something out of sports because you went long with weather. But they were very, very close friends, their families, close friends. In fact, there was a tradition here at Channel 13 for years. I got here in 93, and almost every afternoon, Don would bring cookies to the station that his wife, Judy, had baked, and Don and Bob would go to the break room and have about a 15-minute cookie and coffee break in the middle of the afternoon. And that was their tradition. Again, it harkens back to a golden age of television.
Yeah.
But Bob has some great stories to tell and to talk about. Certainly I've worked with Don from 93 until his retirement, but no one knew Don better than Bob Gregory, and you'll hear from Bob tonight at 6:20.
That's great. You mentioned the golden era with the Heiner, with Mark Patrick, with Ed Sorensen. Again, that's just in general an era that we will never see around here. And if you weren't a part of it, if you're not old enough, that's too bad because it held such a level of significance for everybody. Household names, and they were welcomed, and it was an incredible competition going back between the three as well. And honestly, you couldn't find three more, I think, different at times, certainly personalities than those three in that era.
No question. Now, they were all terrific. They all had their strengths, but they were all very different stylistically and in their approaches. And Don, as I said before, was much more of a hardcore journalist, took great pride in his writing, wasn't trying to wow you with a catchphrase as he talked over highlights, would use not big words, but, his English was precise. And he took pride in that as well and considered it very much a professional. And, having been a former college athlete, college basketball player, I think he worked hard to fight the dumb jock notion, and that, it was dumb jocks who were, getting into television and broadcasting and taking these kind of jobs. Don took great pride in that. Yes, I know sports. I've been a college athlete. I've played at an elite level, but I am also a professional sportscaster and take great pride in the way I do my job and deliver sports news to our community.
So Rich Nye with reflection on one of the all-time greats around here, the passing of Don Hine at the age of 85 earlier today. So look forward to Rich and his story coming up on Channel 13 WTHR. It is great to hear your voice, my brother. I know it's been a minute since that. I think that initial game with Caitlin Clark before the Fever played, going back to early, I should say middle of last spring. But it's always an absolute pleasure. Give everybody down there my best, and I cannot wait to see that story and that reflection. So many people absolutely care and enjoyed that, and I'm sure we'll love this story upcoming.
JMV, thanks for having me, and thanks for your kind words.
You
Anytime.
got it. Anytime, Rich. Thank you very much. Rich Nye of Channel 13 WTHR, the passing of the legendary Don Hine. Check out his story coming up on Channel 13 WTHR. There was another passing, and this probably somebody that James knows too, Michael Madsen, the actor. So many, and I'll say iconic / cult following type of roles, from Reservoir Dogs to Kill Bill. Just had so much of a relationship and a connection with writer, producer, director Quentin Tarantino, Donnie Brasco. So many great films, and we'll look back a little bit on the career of Michael Madsen, who passed away today at the age of 67. Just incredible stuff. All right, quick break. We'll come back. I mentioned Ritchie McKay, the head coach at Liberty, is going to join us coming up at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Tucker Barnhart stepped away from Major League Baseball earlier this week. The Brownsburg product will join us coming up at the bottom of the 4. Dick Mittman passed away, and I thought Mike Chappell would be great with that particular angle and other stuff with Mike after 5. But on the other side, Cam Jones, second-round selection. It was a target of the Pacers. Team guy Marquette and his head coach Shaka Smart joins us coming up on the other side for discussion on that and a lot more, so don't go anywhere. The stream, the app, it's HD Radio, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Don't go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Embarrassing, so this song goes out to him.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, for those of you interested, by the way, R.I.P. Michael Madsen, Stuck in the Middle with You by Steelers Will from 1974. Synonymous with what film, James?
Reservoir Dogs.
Bingo! The 91, 92 Tarantino classic right there. Michael Madsen passed away today at the age of 67. Tucker Barnhart retired from Major League Baseball after 10 years. We talk with him coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Ritchie McKay from Liberty, their head coach, coming up at 4. But on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, I was just introduced to our next guest a little bit earlier today and could not be more happy that he had time to come on the show. Of course, the second-round selection out of Marquette going back to the NBA draft, or at least the selection was made by San Antonio and then acquired by the Pacers. Cam Jones is the guard. And to discuss his former player, the head coach at Marquette, Shaka Smart, joins us now. Hey, Shaka, thank you very much for the time. How are you?
I'm terrific. Thanks for having me on, James.
Thank you very much. Well, James is the producer. JMV, John here is the but that's okay. That kind of gets lost in translation sometimes, but that is okay. I'm John, and I do want to start right here. I had mentioned this about Cam Jones, and obviously watching him play for your team and watching your team in the Big East and matchups with Butler, this Pacer team is just that. It's team-oriented. It's evolved to be that, and he seems like a perfect fit to try to add to the team orientation that Chad Buchanan and Kevin Pritchard and Rick Carlisle have put together. Is that fair to say?
Yes, John. He is a great fit for the Pacers, and the Pacers are an equally great fit for him. Now he's got to make that adjustment from college to the NBA, which we all know is pretty steep, but I've got all the confidence in the world in him.
How about sometimes, Shaka, it's about the landing spot? And it seems like that the Pacers, it's become a really good landing spot for guys who may not be, as you describe, ready to roll right now, but again, can evolve into it. This seemed like a perfect fit all the way around.
Well, you know what's really bizarre, John, is the second round, much more so than the first round, you have a little bit more say in terms of what team you're going to. And so last Thursday, there was a few different teams that were strongly interested in Cam, including the Pacers, obviously. And we all wanted him with the Pacers, including Cam. But, you know, through his agent and kind of the process, there was some manipulation that went into making sure he went to the Pacers, because in terms of being a cultural fit, it's much different when you go to the Indiana Pacers than, you know, I don't want to throw any teams out there, but maybe a different organization.
Well, you know what you're going to get with the Pacers. You're going to get an opportunity if you produce, right? From the coach on up to the decision makers on the player personnel. And Shaka, what it is, I said this over the course of the season, and I truly believe in it. I've loved this Pacer team this season more than any other team, Colts, Pacers, what have you, around here, because it is just that. It is a team. And I thought the team concept over the past in the NBA got lost in the shuffle with a big two or a big three. And while those elite players are still incredibly important, I think you have seen with those two finals teams, being the Pacers and the champion Thunder, they are both as team-oriented as any other squad you might find. And I think, honestly, Shaka, that is the future of some of these organizations, trying to fill in all those gaps and make sure you are more well-rounded with depth than ever before.
Well, there's a spirit and an energy that both the Pacers and OKC had throughout the playoffs and the regular season, and that aligns with who Cam Jones is. It also aligns with winning. So to your point, the rest of the league is paying attention and saying, hey, we better follow suit. And then, by the way, that's what fans resonate with too, because these are human beings. And when you feel that spirit and energy that's, as you say, team-oriented, it's something that's fun to be around.
You know, what's interesting about Shaka Smart joins us, the head coach of Marquette. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. What's interesting about what you just said is I would get all the time, and I'm a big fan of the NBA. I'm just a big fan of basketball in general. I absolutely love it. And people would say, well, you know, I like the college game or I like the high school game. It's more pure and it's more team-oriented. But compared to what the Pacers do, you're going to find, to me, across the college and now the high school landscape, a hell of a lot more of isolation basketball than you do team basketball. And I just happen to think, especially when something goes positively and you see winning from it, that others around the NBA, these are things that will be noted, and these are maybe blueprints and paths that will be taken to try to make sure you are more team-oriented, because that's what you saw with the two best teams as an end result this year.
No question. Yeah, I'll actually read you 2 text messages that Cam sent me yesterday. He said, "It's been great. It really reminds me of Marquette. Everyone here is cool and on the same page. Our core values are the same as Marquette, just different terminology."
And that's, you know, you set the pace here, and I'm assuming that's how he ends up getting here. Because the other part about it is it's also how you're coached. It's how you're coached in college and the transition that you can make. You know, we know all about these so-called, you know, high-level lottery first-round picks. But when you're trying to find that cultural fit, then that's why it seemed, I thought, such a great fit for so many, as Cam Jones was the guy that ended up here, really, for both the player and Cam, but for the Pacers here moving forward and try to evolve as they do as this team.
What you'll see in Cam is what you guys are seeing with Nembhard, Neesmith, McConnell. Obviously, those guys are a lot further along than him at this point, but what you see in them is a real seriousness for winning. They're not messing around. There's nothing required of them in the game that they feel like they're above as a person or a player. They're willing to do the smallest things. And so for that reason, those 3 guys play to their advantages at such a high level that it makes them a lot better players than maybe people would have projected when they first got to the NBA. And you're going to see similar qualities in Cam.
I'll give you a point that I made. I watched a lot of Gonzaga basketball, and obviously when Gonzaga and Baylor played in the national championship, I was always a big Andrew Nembhard guy. But when you watched him work against that Baylor team that was led by Davion Mitchell, and you know Baylor's up and down the floor, and it looked like a pace that I kind of wondered if he was going to be able to do at the next level. And what is so funny is how wrong my initial thought was, because now he works as a part of a team and will lead a team with Tyrese Halliburton out this year that goes at one of the more high paces throughout the NBA landscape, which, you know, goes to show you sometimes you have to see what could be transferable from college to the NBA that maybe others like me, you know, the novice category like me, don't see, because he has been perfect for this team. And I think that's, I guess, how NBA guys evaluate guys on the college level. It's not game to game, it's over the course of a career.
He's my favorite player on the Pacers other than Cam. But I think he's a great example. A lot of these guys are great examples of, and this is a humbling reality for us as college coaches, you're not always going to see the very, very best of everything these guys can do until they become 23, 24, 25, even 30 years old, and they reach that point of competitive maturity. And so, you know, he's a great example of that. That's what Cam's going to have to do, you know, to be able to thrive at that level. But he has all the ingredients he needs inside of him as a person. And now he's in a great organization, which creates an environment that'll be fertile for his growth.
Yeah, he is Shaka Smart, the head coach of Marquette. Where does evaluating a player for you in terms of your own team at Marquette, where does fit land? Team concept fit compared to athleticism, shooting ability, and all this stuff like fans like me just see is so important. Where does the cultural fit for you rank as far as evaluating a player you want a part of your program?
It's the number one filter. If you don't get through that filter, then It doesn't matter if you have a 10-foot wingspan, because at the end of the day, we're playing a team sport. Basketball is fascinating because if you think about it, particularly at the NBA level, but now more and more in college and even high school, the game is in many, many ways marketed as an individual sport. But as we know, when we get out there and it's Pacers against Thunder, or it's Pacers beating the Knicks, or Pacers beating the Bucks in the playoffs, it's the best team that advances. And then, of course, the team ultimately reflects back on the parts of the team. And so, yeah, that's the number one filter for us. I mean, I don't care if you average 30 points a game. If you're not a cultural fit, if you don't value the three things that we value most, then we're not going to spend much time on you.
It is so weird for me. I find myself, and I don't know if it's just me maturing / getting old or what. And I'm a lover of basketball in general, but I have transformed from ball watching to watching off the ball. I think that's now even more entertaining to me than it was, because I was always, hey, watch what this person does with the ball. But now it's more entertaining to watch what happens off the ball, because as we know now, that is equally as important to what happens when the person has the ball. It's you mentioned it's an amazing game. It is. And even at the age of 55, like me, you can be introduced to something that is brand new and very entertaining for you.
Well, you're going to like watching Cam Jones off the ball. That's one of the things that he does really, really well, is he cuts and moves with the best of them. The first 3 years of his Marquette career, he played shooting guard, and then last year he played point guard, and he did both at a high, high level. But, you know, now being in the NBA with some other really good playmakers, I'm sure he'll be in a position where he's off the ball a lot more than he was this past year, and he can really cut and move and change the floor around with the way he moves his body.
Shaka, how are things going for you up at Marquette? How's this this offseason and getting ready for the start of the season progressing?
It's going great. It's a phenomenal opportunity. We kind of go against the grain. We do things a little bit different. We haven't taken a Division I transfer in the last 4 years. So we really try to pour into our current guys and our incoming guys. We've got everybody on campus, and this is a rich opportunity for us to just help the guys grow and become kind of the next version for us of Marquette basketball. We lost Cam and 2 other starters who were integral parts of our team. So it's both daunting and also exciting to have to take on the challenge of those guys moving on. Just to give you a frame of reference, Cam scored more baskets than any other player that's put on a Marquette uniform in a single season since the beginning of the program. And so we're working towards replacing that. And, of course, you don't do that with just one person. You do that by committee.
Well, it's amazing. Like Matt Painter, I have on the show all the time, and he's taken some, I think, this particular off season as far as transfers in, but normally he just works with those that he recruits and he brings in. Is it just year to year for you with that, or is that just a philosophy, much like I know Matt has had certainly in the past, that you just believe in and you will adhere to until further notice?
It's a philosophy for sure. And not that we're against transfers, we're just pro retention of our current players.
Sure.
And we think that those things are not mutually exclusive. And again, we're very unique in that way. I'm not saying that it's the right way to do it. In fact, if you ask most people, they would say we're crazy. And by the way, I think Matt Painter is as good or better than any coach in Division I basketball. I mean, what he's done in his program is phenomenal. Unfortunately, we have to go to West Lafayette in December this year, so that'll be a heck of a challenge for us. But, yeah, we just – listen, I was raised by a single mom. You know, I had coaches that wrapped their arms around me and poured into me and, you know, told me I was their guy and that they would lift me up and turn me into a man. So that's what we try to do with our guys. And we feel like if you bring in 5, 6, 7 new guys and you're running off 2, 3, 4 guys that didn't hit right away, we think that goes against that philosophy.
Single mom right here, too. It certainly does give you a different perspective, doesn't it, Shaka? I mean, it does. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. And you know what? Before I go, I got to tell you, I also coached Mo Ali Cox at VCU.
No, I was going to bring that up.
Super proud of him. and what he's done for the Colts.
Well, I asked him a couple of months ago if he was ready to play some pickup basketball with me, and I think I have to wait until his career's over.
Man, he is a heck of a basketball player.
Yes, he is.
He's one of my favorite guys that I've ever coached because he's in a small minority of guys that was way, way better than he thought he was. I mean, he was such a humble player, but, man, he was so good. The best screen setter, and you can imagine this, that I've ever coached.
That's the best screen setter, and there's a lot. That's a lot to be said about that. There really is, because that's a part. That's the off the ball stuff. That's sometimes on the ball too, but off the ball stuff that I talked about as well. Hey, thank you very much for coming on. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind to reach out because I love, obviously the knowledge you have in basketball and talking hoop anytime I can. So if you don't mind us reaching out here occasionally, if you have some time to come on, we'd love it.
Anytime. I mean, hopefully we're talking in a matter of months, and Cam Jones is helping the Pacers win games. So I'm always available to you. I think Cam coming to not only the Pacers but also the city of Indianapolis, it's just a great fit for him. I'm partial to the Midwest, and, Cam's from Memphis, but he just reminds me of, someone that's, from the Midwest, and him being there is, I think, an awesome fit.
Thank you very much, Coach. We appreciate it. We'll stay in touch and get you back on again. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, John.
It's Shaka Smart, the head coach of Marquette, regarding Cam Jones. That was awesome on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Quick break. We'll come back. Ritchie McKay at the top of the hour, the other second-round selection. We'll get to that with the head coach of Liberty coming up. Do not go anywhere. Tucker Barnhart, Mike Chappell as well. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
V.
Let me have a Diablo sandwich, a Dr. Pepper. Make it fast. I'm in a damn hurry.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Now the Harris Hoosier Park race of the day after 5. Make sure you get your horse at JMV 1070, 50-50 betting and dining, Harris Hoosier Park Racing and Casino in Anderson. What is it, a 40-year anniversary of this song and Back to the Future today? Huey Lewis at the news on B1057. Thank you. Can't help myself. 40 years? Can I share something with you here?
Sure.
I may have shared this with folks before. I've never seen Princess Bride. I've never had a thought of wanting to see it. You know, I've never seen Back to the Future in its entirety.
I do remember you saying
bits
this before.
and pieces, but I've never sat down and watched from start to finish Back to the Future. Is that weird? Especially for Mr. 80s like me, because clearly that's what I am.
Well, it's the 40th anniversary, so now's the perfect time if you want to.
Never seen Back to the Future. I've seen it, but just never from start to finish in one setting.
That is a little shocking.
It is weird, isn't it?
It's a classic movie. I love it, so I highly recommend
There
watching
are
it.
3 that stand out, and I think they're all from I don't know what was going on in 1985, but I've never seen from start to finish in one setting Back to the Future. I've never seen Princess Bride. Is that 85 or is that 87? That may be 87. So that may not apply.
Princess Bride is 1987.
87. I've never seen Gremlins in one setting.
That's a shocking
That
one.
is, because Phoebe Cates is in that too.
That's a good movie.
Yeah, I've seen it, all of it, but I've never seen it from start to finish. True story right there. Shaka Smart was awesome from Marquette. We talked Cam Jones, his player, a second-round selection by the Spurs. Rights acquired by the Pacers. He told you the story about how that all transpired. Good stuff right there from Shaka Smart, the head coach of Marquette on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Talon Peter is a second-round selection out of Liberty. Ritchie McKay, his head coach, goes all the way back to coaching Danny Granger at New Mexico. The head coach of Liberty is going to join us about 30 minutes from Tucker Barnhart, Mike Chappell after 5. Do not go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, and the beat goes on. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Tucker Barnhart, bottom of the hour, 10 years in Major League Baseball, called it a career earlier this week. I believe he ended things with the Rangers organization. Most notably, we'll forget the time with the Cubs. We'll forget the time with the Tigers, most notably with the Reds. Friend of this show, and I'm assuming now he's able to carve out a lot more time on our Tavern Tour stops and Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila shots. I'm assuming Bud Light Blue Fridays for Tucker Barnhart in his future. Tucker joins us at the bottom of the hour. Mike Chappell coming up after 5. Shaka Smart, the head coach of Marquette. We talked up Cam Jones a little bit earlier with Shaka, that podcast at 107.5. thefan.com. Taylor Peter is out of Liberty, and to get a little bit more background, it is, I think, best suited to go to his head coach at Liberty, Ritchie McKay, who's kind enough to join us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. Hey, Coach, thank you very much for the time. How are you?
John, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
It is great to track you down. A short conversation last Friday, and then almost a week later, here we are. How's the so-called offseason going for you to this point?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. It may be my phone, John, but I kind of wished I had some access to you on satellite radio because your reputation is it goes before you, man.
Oh,
you're one of the best in the business.
Who you been telling? You talked to my mom or something like that? That's awesome, man. No,
if you're
well, I mean, obviously, somebody, one of your Ryan Carr, you know very well, who is the head of scouting for the Pacers, and the one thing that he knows, that I love basketball, and I could talk basketball all the time, but I'm more at listening. And I'm 55 and I still like to play. I just played last night. I love to play. Not at a high level, but I still love to play. But basketball will forever be in my heart. I absolutely love it. And I just like to sit back and talk with somebody like you, Ritchie, that has, just a wealth of knowledge, not just about a second-round selection by the Pacers, but about basketball in general. I'm assuming it takes that level of love to be doing for so many years at a high level what you have accomplished.
No, I do love the game, and I got it from I'm born and raised in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So I was there my first 8 years of my life, but caught Hoosier hysteria from a young age and never looked back. So, and I coached Danny Granger, who, as you well know, had a long, successful career with the Pacers. So, needless to say, when Ryan mentioned they had an interest in, man, hats off to that organization. Like Ryan, Chad, Kevin, those dudes Larry Bird, those dudes don't miss a beat. They really have a unique evaluation gift in terms of the fit for what they're looking for, the way the Pacers play, and what Coach Carlisle and their staff value. So I was elated for Taylor to go to an organization like the Pacers, unbelievable gift.
I was talking to Shaka just moments before you came on, Ritchie, too, about that fit, and a cultural fit it is, because what the Pacers have, and really you saw that in OKC as well, you saw two teams representing in the finals that went the distance in 7 games that are just that, are teams. And in the NBA, it has been the past where it's been about one guy or two guys or a big three, and we saw with these two teams, the concept is just that. It's team, and honestly, I thought it's refreshing, and I think more organizations are going to see that and try to develop a level of depth that we saw with both of those teams in this past NBA Finals.
Yeah, really great point, John. There's a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni, and in the intro it says, teamwork remains the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it's so elusive and so rare. And I think what you saw in the finals is just that coming to fruition. I mean, both those teams played not only with a high level of intensity, physicality, but unbelievable unselfishness and star in your role power. Like the narrative in the NBA used to be the big three, you got to have three. And I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think the game has changed a little bit, and the Pacers had the insight to be on the forefront of that.
Yeah, and Taylor Peter, as you mentioned, Ritchie McKay is the head coach of Liberty, your player. There are a lot of different angles to get to him. I mean, everybody brings up the three-point shooting, but from what I have gathered and watched, certainly he's incredibly athletic. And you mentioned the team concept. He fits that perfectly within this organization, trying to make it here.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Like you're gonna be wowed when Talon goes up and he dunks on somebody in summer league. His ability to get it from end to end and make good decisions behind it, and he's got deep range and has the ability to get it off in tight spaces. He's just got a knack for that. And but the best thing about him, as talented and gifted as he is, he's incredibly hardworking, but he wants to win the game. So Talon could care less about individual prowess or numbers. Certainly he's competitive. He's going to try and earn every hits, and when he's playing on the court, he won't be nice. But I do think he'll be a great teammate and someone that organization really values because of his locker room posture.
So Ritchie McKay is the head coach of Liberty. He's kind enough to join us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I asked Shaka Smart something similar to this, but in terms of what we've discussed so far about your former player, the athleticism, the shooting ability, but the selflessness is something as well that stands out, and he's given you the opportunity to soak up a great deal of that as a member of your team, just being selfless and involved in the team concept over the individual stuff.
Yeah, I've shared the story multiple times, and the Pacers weren't the only organization that had a high interest in Tay. But Talon, I don't know, John, midway through the non-conference play, maybe it was game 7, 8, I can't remember. He had obviously earned the opportunity to start, and he was a little behind because he didn't play with us in the summer. He had a sprained wrist. So I just went to him and said, "Hey, Tay, you're going to start tonight." And he said, Coach, wait, who am I starting for? I said, "Tay, that's up to me. Don't worry about it. I got this. I've done it before." He said, No, Coach. Don't mess up what we got going. Don't run the risk of someone losing confidence because you pull him from the starting lineup. I'm good coming off the bench. Who does that these days? In the day and age of NIL and hey, you gotta promote your brand, or I'm trying to get to the league or the next level. It's a rarity. So that in itself speaks to, I think, the selflessness and the humility he has, and the trust that his work was going to pay off eventually. And it was really neat draft night to see that come to fruition.
It's Ritchie McKay, the head coach of Liberty, talking about his former player, Taylor Peter. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. The one thing, the selflessness is absolutely something in this NIL era you don't hear too much about. But the one thing you do see is his path. How much anymore when somebody comes to the program like that and they have a lengthy path to get there, how much is that in developing the player, or how much do you have to see to entrust them within your program? Because it's like commonplace now. 2 or 3 stops is become common in college basketball. What do you have to see in a player to believe that this is just not a stepping stone, or is that how you have to view that as a head coach, Ritchie?
Yeah, great question, John. I think there's a lot of different ways you could answer that, and everyone who sits in the position of making that decision will probably have a little different process in the way they decide upon it. But for us, we want guys that have a gratitude for the opportunity they have, and that have a winning DNA. Again, it's why I have so much respect for the Pacers organization. They value individuals that will sacrifice their individual stuff for our team stuff. And I think whenever you have people operating and starring in their roles or in their identity, I just think you got a chance for success. So that's part of the vetting process that we pay great heed to. And then once you get them, if they're true and committed to that, even long after the mood or the feeling they said it in, if I can quote Inky, that's true commitment. And Talon was that. Get what he wanted at the beginning, and he just stayed true to the work ethic, the trust, adding value to the individual instance of the game. And man, we were the benefactors, John. I'll even go this far. Talon could probably get on your team in your 55 and under league and add some value to your team's winning equation?
Well, he may get asked. Because I do people, it drives people nuts around here too. I ask nearly everybody. I give you a great example. Here's who continues to duck me every time I ask. Chad Buchanan, Pacers general manager. I hear all about this history in Iowa, and all I get is, well, I'm a little sore and I don't want to get injured. Blah, blah, blah. I get all these excuses about plastic. I'll come to Westfield and pick you up and take, because we play at a legendary place, Southport High School, at the Southport Fieldhouse right there on the south side of Indy. And I said, I'll come up and get you. But I get from Chad Buchanan, Coach, nothing but excuses every time.
Yeah. John, I think I'd leave that one alone. Chad could hoop, and his renown would. Look, all I'll say is, if you get on one of their teams, maybe think about becoming more of a passer than a scorer.
I'm a facilitator. Is what I am. I just try to give back. I kind of know. I say this all the time too. I know the level of player. That I'm playing with when it goes from not having any screens called out to somebody calls a flare screen, and I go, yeah, I think these guys have played before. So, yeah, I feel safe, feel comfortable in the environment right here. Ritchie McKay is the head coach of Liberty. He's on the Eddie Moore Automotive Group hotline. I did want to ask you, too, you've been such a part. I want to go back to your days coaching Danny Granger while at New Mexico as well, but you've seen just such a change, a monumental change in the landscape of college basketball. How do you like where we are right now compared to what you have gone through as a coach in the past?
Yeah, I think the adaptability that you have to have when you're in any vocation is paramount to the way you experience it. And I always want to look at it as a get to and not a have to, because I think coaching is a incredibly rewarding, incredibly privileged opportunity, and I never want to take it for granted. Are there inconveniences? Certainly. Things that we got to get used to? Yeah. Is there some things that I would love to see change or be a part of the change? Yes. But that being said, like what we get to do for a living and having a chance to influence or impact young people on a daily basis, man, that's a gift. So I don't ever want to complain or have a lack of gratitude for the opportunity that we have.
So Shaka Smart was on right before you, and he talked about at Marquette. They have the philosophy, and he's able to hang with it, recruiting and then bringing back their own. What is your philosophy at Liberty? And I'll give you a great example. Matthew Graves is a friend of mine, and he's at Indiana State. That's where I went to college, Indiana State. And I had a love affair with their NIT squad 2 years ago, all the way to the championship game. And they lose to Seton Hall at Hinkle Fieldhouse. And then it took literally 24 hours, and then everything was gone. From Josh Schertz, their head coach, to I had first 6 players on the roster. Is it a year-to-year thing for you now, or you try to dictate more of the terms on making this, a longer thing and those going with what you know more than the whole year-to-year aspect this has become in a lot of places?
Yeah, obviously had some experience with the Bulldogs and beyond, and then Josh Schertz, a fabulous coach. He's actually a really good friend, and I learned from him on the regular when I watch his teams play. But that Indiana State team was fun for everyone to watch, even those who had to either compete against him or were just in the same vocation, because that team was special. They played with a unity and a selflessness that we all admire and would want to emulate. But nowadays college basketball, and again, it depends on your style. Shaka is building with high school guys. He seems archaic in the way it's supposed to be or the way it is now, but he believes in it, and they haven't dropped off one beat. So we take the on the individual occasion approach. Like I think Talon was Tennessee Tech, then Arkansas Tech, and then he came to us. And Talon's past experiences were not what he had wanted them to be relative to his role, maybe the way he felt like he could be developed. And no disrespect, because he played for a great college coach in Arkansas Tech, Mark Downey. But he just gelled with our guys, and we connected. We had an authentic relationship, and all of a sudden his trust increased, and we were the benefactor of that. So, I think you got to wake up every day and take the day for what it's worth, and see if you can't impact the why that you started out with in a way that is beneficial to not just you, but to the other people that are in your path.
Yeah, that is Ritchie McKay, the head coach of Liberty. Yeah, those are very true words. I think about this too. And maybe this has always been the case, but we just don't notice it as much because now we're kind of soaking in it. But there used to be, Richie, such a perceived gap between, for example, like Division II and Division I basketball, and there does not seem like at all there is that wide a gap as there used to be any longer. Is that true, or is that just all of us kind of dealing with the circumstances of consistent and large amounts of movement nowadays in college basketball?
Great observation. It's true, because college basketball is as old as it's ever been. Guys have gained more opportunities to stay in college basketball, and the NIL era is upon us. So they've, in a lot of cases, they can actually make more money being a college basketball student athlete than going overseas. So it's created a little bit of a logjam, and there's just not as many opportunities for high school players. So some of those players who are really good enough end up at Division II schools, and then when they make the move, because there's a vacancy at the Division I level, you see them flourish. So I think you're spot on, and it's just a matter of, again, continue to trust and believe in yourself, because if you're good enough, i.e. Talon Peter or a host of others that have been drafted, you're going to be able to showcase yourself on a big stage.
They're going to find you now, whereas back in the day, you may have been lost in the shuffle, but nowadays it doesn't matter where you're hooping. If you're hooping at a high level, somebody's going to find you.
John, I agree with you. I played Division II at Seattle Pacific, and if I would have been in this era, man, I might have been in your league.
No. Well, I'm thinking if I'd have been in this era, maybe I'd have played someplace. That's what I've been thinking. We need some numbers here. That's kind of how I end up playing, because we need some numbers. So yeah, go ahead and get out here and play. Ritchie McKay is the head coach of Liberty. On the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, you spent time, obviously, as we mentioned, in Albuquerque as the head coach of New Mexico, and one of your prized pupils, former Pacer Danny Granger. A little bit about him, because there is still a lot of love for Danny Granger around here in Pacerland.
And rightfully so. And what a great dude. He is a great representative of the University of New Mexico, our program, and the Granger family. Danny was someone that had this unbelievable competitive streak, but he had the drive to match it. And I remember him telling me, because I was in the green room when he was drafted, I think it was pick 17, and he wanted to be in the lottery. He was just outside of it, and he was either the last or the next last person in there. He said, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to be an all-star coach. I said, Danny, you're going to be really good. You're going to make it all-star? I don't know. Sure enough, when he made the All-Star game, he sent me his DG 33 shoes and said, I told you so, Coach.
That's awesome. That is great. Yeah, he still get a lot of love around here. The other thing I noticed is, and I was aware of it, but I look back when you were the coach at New Mexico, but you were born here the first 8 years of your life in Indianapolis, but I'm assuming you noticed while you were there all the Indiana type of influence you had that, was either, with Alford and Neal, with Ellenberger, with Bob King. It is amazing the Hoosier State connection that New Mexico has.
Yeah, that's really true. And it's a little ironic, but Albuquerque and Lobo fans really valued Coach Knight, really all things Indiana. They have such a passion. That fan base is as you can put them up against the Big Blue Nation or anywhere else. The Dayton fans, they love their Lobos and they love basketball. So it's not uncommon or it's not unique that both of those states, Hoosier land and Albuquerque, the land of enchantment, would have a similar passion and love for the game.
What makes the Pitt, obviously 1983 national championship, NC State and Houston, we know that to be the Pitt. That's what everybody knows. But what made that such a tremendous home court advantage, as everybody talks about?
Number one, it's about 5,000 plus feet elevation, so it's not the easiest place to breathe. But the fans are so knowledgeable, and they're right on top of you. They would sell it out over and over again, and it just created a great home court advantage. And they had really good players and unbelievable coaches. So it was really a privilege to coach there the 5 years I had the opportunity to, and obviously Danny helped our cause a little bit when I was there, and he went on to bigger and better things.
How special is Liberty to you? I'm assuming very much so.
Oh, I love it, John. This place is it's a rarity, and given a chance to be a part of a mission that goes beyond something bigger than yourselves, that alignment for me has been fabulous, and we've been fortunate enough to have a few opportunities to go elsewhere and all that. But man, I just feel called here. I love the opportunity that we have to interact with the young men that come through our doors.
How much of a connection do you still have with the Curry family?
I know them. Obviously, I coach Seth, and Steph came to Liberty to speak at one of our convocations. A lot of respect for Dell and Sonia, and met Aisha. So, and don't talk to him much anymore, but have a lot of love and respect for him.
All right, here's the final question here. I mentioned I asked Chad Buchanan, should I ask Ryan Carr to play in a pickup game? What do you think about that?
We'll plead the fifth on that one. Although my guess is Ryan probably knows a little bit, thing or two about the game, so be careful. Those guys are sneaky good.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed talking hoop. Hopefully you can tell that, and I hope if you don't mind, I'd love to catch up with you sometime further down the road and talk a little bit of basketball at your leisure, because I absolutely love doing it. This has been a joy.
Anytime, John. Thanks for having me on.
Coach, thank you very much. Ritchie McKay right there, the head coach of Liberty. Taylor and Peter, we talked about the Pacers' second-round selection and a lot more. Little basketball 45-minute span right there with Ritchie McKay, the head coach of Liberty, and Shaka Smart, the head coach of Marquette. Podcast at 1075thefan.com. We've got the Harrah's Hoosier Park race of the day. Prior to that, though, we have Tucker Barnhart, who's going to join us coming up on the other side. A great career, and he called it quits earlier this week. He has retired so he can spend more time, not with family, not with friends, but with this show. Tucker Barnhart joins us coming up on the other side. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
All right, Hamilton.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
The late, great Rick Derringer from the state of Indiana right there, James. He passed away last month, I believe, right?
Felt appropriate with the holiday.
Oh, it does, yeah. All right. Where would you rank I Am a Real American with the patriotic songs? What other patriotic songs do you think of? America by Neil Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
How about America by Prince?
There's a lot of songs with the word America in there.
American Girl,
That's
Tom
a good
Petty.
one.
What are the patriotic songs anybody thinking about?
Is it a cop-out to say the Star Spangled Banner?
It probably is.
Okay.
How about Sky Rockets in Flight? No, that's about sex. Afternoon Delight. Well, sex is very patriotic, too.
Exactly.
Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. On that note, let's bring in the recently retired after an outstanding career because, from what I gather, I don't know if this was reported, but Tucker Barnhart, who joins us now, is trying to carve out some space in joining us every Thursday and Friday on the road. Is this true?
I'm in. I'm so in.
Can you imagine?
As long as I can clear it by the boss, I'm in.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to have to get Ubers now, buddy. Let me tell you that. I don't know where this is going, but that's every Thursday and Friday we're looking for you. I'd heard that was one of the real reasons why you decided to go ahead and call it a career was because you wanted to hang.
It really was. I wanted to maximize my opportunities this summer to meet with you guys on Thursday and Friday on location and enjoy a nice Uber ride home. That's a part of it for sure.
Well, tomorrow, I'm at Paradise Day Watson, which is right across Banter Road, right across the road from me at Paradise Day Watson. And I've got, I love my friends at Big Red Liquors. I may have more in the back of my car right now than they do. I have more than they. And people go, "Oh, I can't believe why do you want to do that?" Because I like to have fun, and that is very fun to me. So I'm right across the road and having a great backyard party. Hopefully, you're getting a chance to do that too. I'm assuming you're spending a lot of time with family here, being recently retired.
No doubt. We grilled out the other night. I think we're gonna grill out tonight. We've got 4th of July plans with some friends. It's awesome. I'll be honest with you, outside of marrying my wife, probably never been so sure on a decision, man. So,
really?
Yeah, I'm so excited. It was time. My gas tank was empty in terms of playing baseball, and I'm in a good spot for sure.
Does it feel weird? It has to feel weird, right? For doing this forever and then not doing it right now?
Yeah, a little bit. The last couple summers, given some of the times that I've been released or let go, have kind of given me a little bit of time at home during this part of the year. So being home right now at this current moment doesn't necessarily feel that weird. I would assume that once spring training rolls around, will be probably the weirdest time. But I have no intentions of going back and trying to hit 100-mile-an-hour fastball again.
No, Tucker Barnhart joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. You hinted at this, I think, when you joined last month, and I kind of felt I didn't go any further than just letting you hint upon that time was coming. Did you have like a specific date, specific time, or did you just get up one morning and go, okay, I've reached where I wanted to reach here for the future, and today I'm done?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have the short answer is I didn't have a certain date that I was after when I was on with you the last time. But when Drew flew down to OKC and we went to Game 5, we went to dinner beforehand and just kind of talked about it. And he asked me, he's like, why are you still playing? Because I just said, man, I was like, look, I think the end's near, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's getting harder and harder to go to the field every day. And
want to compete and be motivated to get better and to play and give the game everything that I've given it in the past and what it's kind of given back to me. And when I couldn't answer the why part of it as concerned to like why I'm still playing, that was where it really hit me. It was like, it's probably time. And I'll be honest, when I talked to you on the phone from OKC, I'd pretty much made the decision there. I think I was going to give it, or I know I was going to give it till the All-Star break. But then when we got back from that road trip, it just wasn't there. It wasn't like I had any more juice left to give. And I called the GM of the Rangers and talked to him and just thanked him, because I was in a situation where I feel like they did me a solid by getting me to 10 years of service time by carrying 3 catchers in situations where I'd be lying if I said where I felt like I could get sent down kind of before that date. But they kind of held me on and got me through that milestone in my career. And I felt like I owed them a little bit of just to say, hey, like, here's my thoughts. I wanted to give you a heads up just to kind of prepare yourselves in order for me to kind of do this. And they wanted me to stay, but they also understood kind of where I was coming from, and I appreciate them very much.
Man, that's awesome too. You've got to hope for a little bit of understanding, because I would guess organization to organization there may not be a similar level of that understanding.
Yeah, definitely. The short answer is absolutely, but the reality is something different, where it's like it's not reciprocated like that, and you're just a number, and if you can't help the team, you're gone, and if you can, you're there, And so I have nothing but good things to say about the Rangers organization and the way. I mean, I knew the deal going into the year. It was either hopefully neither of the catchers that they had on the roster got hurt. If they were to get hurt, I was going to be the guy. If they wanted to carry 3 catchers going into the season, I was going to be the guy. And if they decided to just carry 2 and both of the guys were healthy, I was going to AAA. So they were very upfront and honest going into the year. And so I knew exactly what the plan was. And just, again, very thankful that they it felt like they needed me to be up there for the time that I was, and was able to accomplish a major milestone in my career.
He is 2-time Gold Glove award-winning stud Tucker Barnhart, who called it a career after 10 years of service. He joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So the Gold Gloves, most memorable, or could I say or suggest that your most memorable situation was on the mound during your 10-year career?
They're both. Those are all kind of. They all are in a similar bucket in terms of memories. The Gold Glove thing. The Gold Gloves are obviously toward the top of the list, if not at the top. But they're hard to kind of put one memory to both of them in terms of just kind of something that happened during the year where it was like, okay, I'm going to win a Gold Glove this year. So those obviously are at the top, but I would say that the no-hitter with Wade Miley is probably at the top. It just the amount of stories, the amount of people